Hello, TCI family, Jonathan's Refuge, and I can see that sun is just blaring. So let me help us by closing the drapes a little in my office. I want to welcome you all to Real Time with Rev. It is my monthly vlog that I do, a video log, messages. Sometimes they're simple, 5-10 minutes, and sometimes they're long and elaborate. Today's topic. What shit are you hiding? That's the easiest way to say it. I didn't type it in there because sometimes I know people are like, oh, that's offensive. What crap are you hiding in your life? And this is where we're going to get real with each other. What is it that you're doing, but no one knows you're hiding this thing? I'll give you some good examples. I'm about to undertake a expedition. And I'm going to be walking from it's next year. Matter of fact, this month, roughly next year, we're going to be walking from Mexico, California border to the Canadian Washington border. So we're walking from Mexico to Canada on what they call the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail. That is a 2,650-mile walk. I'm taking someone with me, and that would be a bad place to hide from your walking partners, your hiking partners, your climbing partners, because you're going to be doing all of those things. That would be a horrible place to hide that you really aren't in shape, that you really can't walk more than 100 miles. You might go, hey, I'm positive and I'm thinking positive, right, Rev? Well, thinking positive doesn't mean lying, okay? Thinking positive means we are going to stop focusing on the negative, focus on the positive, but we're going to create habits. And one of those habits are stop lying. We tell ourselves white lies every day. Some of us look in the mirror and go, oh my God, I'm good looking. And God, you know you're lying. I've looked in the mirror and saw my hair sometimes in the years past, like, woo, that's a good looking hairdo. And everybody later was like, man, what was you thinking? Were you smoking something funny? Little white lies, right? But where can white lies really go wrong? Now, that's a good question. I had the pleasure in my life of working many different companies that I've founded, created, and built. And one of them was a finance company. We specialized in factoring. For those that don't know what factoring is, it simply means this. If your company has an invoice and it already gave its service to another firm, and that firm owes you $10,000 and they're going to pay you over a period of, let's say, 2 months, you can take that note and bring it to my firm, and we'll give you cash for that note, and then we'll collect the money over the next few months instead of you. And we take, and of course, we discount it for a fee so that we can make a little profit on the transaction. And during those years, one of the phone calls I got was from a very good friend of mine who said, hey, listen, I heard you specialize in factoring, and do you have any lenders or any financing to help factor some payments for structured settlements like a lottery? And I'm like, a lottery winner? Come on, man. Everyone knows who the lottery winners are. Matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, there's really only about 4 different factoring companies that go after them, and that's all they specialize in. And so they know who they all are. And this guy was a friend, and he says, yeah, exactly. They have come after him, but I'm one of his close financial advisors, and he won't go with any of them unless I say so. And I said, well, funny, because I do actually. And so we connected him. And the man's name was Billy Bob Harold. Billy Bob Harold. Sad story. You can Google it and read it. He and his wife worked at, if I remember, like Kroger's, one of the companies owned by Safeway, or Safeway's owned by Kroger. He worked at a grocery store in Texas, and his wife did. And they had this life, and they were churchgoers, and they were the most, the pillars of their community, the pillars of church world, the pillars of everything. You know, if there was a school function, they were all there and donating time and efforts and the little funds that they scraped together and all those kinds of things. They had a little house, not a huge house, but a decent home. And they had some kids. And old Billy Bob Harold hit the lotto. Bang, he won millions. Well, Billy Bob's dead, and most of the millions were all just thrown overboard. So how is that? How did Billy Bob do all of that? Well, the story's even worse because what happened is after he won all the millions, well, every church in America showed up on his doorstep going, well, praise God, brother, that the Lord let a good, faithful Christian receive this money because you know that money is the root of all evilness. So we need to help you get rid of it. And if you pour it into our church, we got a new building we're building. We only need like $2 million. So he'd write the check for $2 million. Why did he write the check? Because he was hiding shit. What was he hiding? He was hiding the fact that he told people he understood how to handle money. Oh, I know how to handle money. I survived all these years on barely anything. Listen, if you think you know money because you've survived for 50 years on nothing, you don't. All you know how to do is just barely survive. So he was pretending he knew. In his head, he was telling himself, I am smart. I know what I'm doing with money. And I know that I understand the concepts and how to invest and all these things. So I'm going to make all the right choices. If I remember, it was about $30 million. And of course, it all just continued to go because he lied to himself. He told himself that he understood these things and he didn't understand them. He should have got an actual real financial planner, a real financial investor. Instead, at the very end, he had a few friends, and one of them was mine, who tried to help him, but it was almost too late at that point. And I remember that he needed just like I think it was a simple loan, like $1.5 million. So we funded it and gave him the loan. And then we would take the next payments from the lotto until that was paid off. And we factored his note. It was sad to hear later that his wife and him kind of separated, and rightfully so. I mean, he ended up, when they separated, running off with a gal that he had a relationship with, a good Christian relationship and all these things. And he was, again, lying to himself. And then he ended up in some country, I think it was France, and he woke up and he noticed that all of his jewelry was gone, his wallet was gone, his money was gone that he had on him. It was like only 10 or 15 grand. And he had a note by the gal that he was with because he told her, listen, I'm breaking this off. I'm out of my league. I need to go home to my wife and my kids, and this is wrong. So she left a note saying, I'm heading home right now, and I'm going to tell your wife and kids and everybody in the public of what you've done. Well, Billy Bob Harold, again, thinking he knew everything, figured the best solution would be, let me call my family, tell them I'd like to speak with them at our home, and I'll be there. And so his wife and kids came home, and his son went upstairs to get his dad, who they assumed was in the bedroom, and he was. Unfortunately, when he opened that door, his father was on the ground and he took a shotgun to himself. For a while in my life, I felt very bad because maybe I felt that by giving him this $1.5 million, that I might have enabled him to do these things. But once I talked to some mentors and I realized it wasn't me, I was doing what he needed, a transaction to help him. I then started to look at what was he hiding. And that was when I discovered that he hid a lot of stuff. And I'm not talking about, like a teenage boy who hides their, Playboy magazine under the bed from their parents, or their joint in the drawer, or the 6-pack of beer that they're taking out this weekend with the boys to the lake. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, what are you hiding that you know is true or not true, but you're not telling people? I used to do seminars and I travel the country. I've spoken in front of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in my life, audiences as big as 12,000 and audiences as little as 1. I've been in over 2,000 homes doing presentations of over 2,000 husbands and wives and families on an individual basis. And one of the things that I saw in those years of traveling that circuit, if you will, is I met a lot of other people who were in that industry. And what's funny is I'd watch them get on stage and talk this great game. And then I would follow them because, see, when I traveled and I made all this money, you can see if people are really successful by watching their words and then seeing if they match up with their actions. And then I realized that some of these guys that were trying to teach stuff, they were living in a studio apartment. I had a house on Dana Point on the cliff. I had a home in Fullerton, beautiful houses. I traveled. I saved money. I wouldn't go stay at the 4 Point share. I mean, the what's it called? Four Seasons It used to be like $500 a night. I think now they're about 700 a night. I didn't stay there unless I took family and things out, but I prefer to stay at a Best Western was one of my favorites, something like that. Save money. I was young and I was trying to do the best I could. So I was listening to mentors, but their words and actions weren't matching up. So they were lying to people. They were lying to themselves. They had secrets, right, that they learned from somebody, and then they copied it and pasted it and tried to sell it as their own. So their words and their actions didn't match up. That's a lie. Like if you tell someone I'm a kind person, but then an hour later you see them stomping somebody out. Are they really a kind person? Or was that just a fluke? Was that just a once in a coincidence that just rarely ever happens? Those are good questions we need to ask ourselves. I've seen a lot of pastors in my life. You're talking to a 5th generational pastor, okay? So I've seen it all. I've seen some of the biggest pastors on TBN, which is the world's largest Christian broadcasting network called Trinity Broadcasting Network. I've seen some of those biggest celebrities there doing cocaine. Yet they stand on the pulpit and tell a whole other story. See, they're lying to themselves. They're lying to the people. They're hiding their shit. They're hiding their crap. That's when I decided to change the game and leave that world of the quote unquote traditional church and create a church that was real, a church that was not full of itself, a church that didn't hide under the lies that it tells. And I was blessed with success. My businesses continued. And like life, you have ups and downs. You go through things. I made millions and I lost millions. I made millions again. I lost them again. But how is it that you can keep doing it? Because you don't hide or lie to yourself. You're not hiding the shit. You're not trying to let them not see your weeds. Let me give you an example. I've been married twice. My current marriage is my second. And if someone came to me and said, hey, pastor, could you give me some marriage counseling? I'd say, absolutely not. I can tell you how not to screw up your marriage from my previous marriage, but I'm too fresh. I've only been with my wife for 3 years. So who am I to give you advice? Could I give you advice? Absolutely, I could give you advice. But I would refer to say, I've got a man who is an expert in that field. And I would like to turn you over to him because he's one of our pastors and he's got a PhD in this field and he's more equipped to help you. Now, I could have hidden all of that and said, no, exactly, I can handle it. But see, that's hiding my weeds. We all have weeds in our garden. See, life is a garden and your life is a garden and you have weeds in it and weeds are always going to grow. That's how people go up and then drop and go up and they drop because they forgot to weed the garden. They were hiding their stuff, their crap. They didn't want to, I know there's some weeds there, but it's okay. Well, that weed started stealing all the nutrients from all the other fruits and vegetables you're growing. And guess what? You crashed because you're hiding your crap. You're not plucking the weeds. Instead, you want to look polished and good. That's something, if you know me and if you follow my messages, I could give a flying hoot what you think about me or how you feel. I'm going to just speak to you from real talk, and I'm not going to polish it up. I'm like you. I have problems. I have mastered certain areas of my life, which is why people pay me a fortune to help fix their companies and their personal lives, because there's certain areas that I've mastered. But I am only a master of a few areas in my life. The rest of them, I have to weed them consistently. And the parts that I master, I got to weed those a little less because I've learned real quick how to spot the weed there. Oop, get rid of that. Boom. It's just barely peeking out of the ground. I can see you. I've even gotten to the point where some of my mentors have taught me how to figure out where that weed's going to end up. And you can tell. And if you really focus on mastering those areas, you can start weeding your garden quicker than the weeds come up. But the areas you're not good at, that's the areas that I tend to see people hiding the weeds. And they just pretend they're not there. But what you don't realize is you're destroying yourself. You're destroying your life. Like Billy Bob. He had $30 million. You and me both know if you just didn't spend a dime of it, put it into an investment account, you could have easily collected $1.5 million a year for the rest of your life. Conservatively speaking, by the way, that's like the most conservative investment portfolio. And you would have never lost a dime. And so what's interesting is that why would he do that? Why? It's real simple why. He lied to himself. He told himself white little lies. And then when he saw weeds coming up, he just kind of covered them up. And so, what are you doing right now in your life that is a weed? What weed is it you got to get rid of? I could care less if you're that person that says, I smoke marijuana. I don't care. It's legal in the states that it's legal in. So if it's illegal, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I'm not going to tell you to do it either. But I also know people who are struggling with it. Like there's some people, they're just addicts, and they think, well, I got rid of that weed thing. And then they're smoking cigarettes at about $20 a day worth of smokes and feeding cancer in themselves. And they think that's okay. It's the same thing. They just switched one addiction to another. So they're still actually not fixing their problem. At least the first problem, they could have been high and forgot about it. That's not, I'm kidding with you. But I'm serious in the respect that when you switch one habit for another habit, you've done nothing but stick a Band-Aid on it, like Western medicine, stick a Band-Aid on it, and it's okay. No, it's not okay. Because you're lying to yourself. And if you lie to yourself, then guess what? Everything else is going to crumble. It's only a matter of time until all the house of cards come crashing down. But when you're raw and you're real with yourself, it can be painful sometimes. It really can. It can be almost devastating because there's no one else to blame but you. You guys have heard a lot of my story in my life. If you haven't, go watch some of the videos. I tell you all about it. But I took two of our sons, and they happen to be bishops in the church. And these two men are brilliant. And if you get a chance, look on their vlog, actually, and their blog. It's under the blogs, and it'll say the Brothers Corner. Click on that and watch the videos by Bishop Andrew Loki and then by Bishop John Sardi. And you'll be blessed. Well, I took them with me on a trip because they hear stories about my life, and I wanted to show them certain places that I've been. And hey, this is where that happened. And this is where when I was 10, I was kidnapped. And that's where I jumped out of the 18-wheeler trying to save my life. And this is the place that I ended up jumping off a bridge trying to kill myself at 10. Things like that. And so I was taking them through all these very traumatizing moments that I've gone through and show them the areas and allow them to kind of feel where I was and the sense of the area, get a better feel for the stuff that I talk about and share in my messages. Now, what's interesting is my whole life, I have said, I have forgiven everybody in my family for any harm they have done to me. I have forgiven everybody who has ever harmed me. I have forgiven myself for having harmed people. I said all those words and they sounded great and I believed them, right? I focused on that. That was the fact. I really did forgive. And I didn't harbor any animosity that I knew of. See, that wasn't an area in my life that I mastered. I was good at it, but I couldn't see the weeds coming up and they were so slick, these weeds. You barely saw them until I was on the trip. And on that trip, I didn't need anyone to even point it out. As I was sharing stories with these men, our sons, our bishops, God just smacked me in the head and said, what you hiding in your garden? What shit are you hiding there, Rev? And man, I had this deep thing, and I don't talk about the passing of a child often, and I still won't. It's a private matter. But it was involved in that. And I thought I was healed. I said I was healed. And then I thought I forgave my family who were involved in letting me live on the street and get beat up and letting me get just stomped out and having to fend for myself at 10. Okay, 10 to 11 was my age bracket. I thought I forgave them. I wasn't resentful. I never even brought it up. I never talked about I used to always tell people, look, the truth is I was a jerk. I was. That is the truth. I was a mean little kid. I was angry. So I don't blame my family for being like, yeah, I ain't flying you home. You're in the middle of nowhere. You got kidnapped. Life sucks. Grow up. That's what I was told. Grow up. Welcome to manhood. I'm like, manhood? I wasn't expecting that until 16. That had to change real quick. But I didn't know until I got into here, into deep inside that garden. And I found that I actually did have for my son this horrible, horrible part of my life because he passed. And I actually forgave everybody but myself. I thought I did, but I didn't think I had anything to be like blamed for. I thought it was all good, as good as you can get, but it wasn't. It was actually destroying me, and I was freed. I wept on those boys, on our sons. They held me as I snot dripping down my face, and my beard probably was horrible looking, covered in tears and snot. And I could just, I'm not going to go into the details, but I can just tell you this. I found healing by weeding out my garden. And then I realized that I did need to forgive other people in a way that I didn't even know I needed to. And I had to forgive myself because I was the jerk. I was that little punk. I deserved it. But did I? Or did I? And I had to forgive a little boy. I had to forgive a little boy. I had to forgive family. I had to forgive. A lot of it was my forgiving myself. So what are you hiding? And how is it holding you back? Because I can promise you one thing. Every time that I weed something out of my garden, a blessing comes right thereafter. It's amazing. It's like a new life of plant pops up in the garden. A new business goes, boom. A business partner comes up and says, hey, let's go build this together. Oh my gosh, that's a brilliant idea. My garden is then blossoming and it's abundantly filled so that I can continue to bless people. Like today, being able to bless America, myself and the group that we work with, we provided 1.2 million meals for people in America today, just from our actions today. Wow. That's called gardening. And in the process, I bettered myself. See, every day I wake up with this little belief in my head. I believe everything resolves or falls apart all on our mindset. We either achieve it or fail because of our mindset. So if you have a mindset that is poor, you're going to be poor. If you have a rich mindset, you're going to get wealth. If you have an abundant mindset, then you're going to be blessed with everything in your life. Getting those mindsets are not easy because so much stuff comes flying at you. Choo, 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 and you're like playing Bruce Lee, trying to block all that negative crap in your life. And there's so much of it. But if you can get into that mindset, that warrior mindset, that success mindset, that mindset is what can do it. But the mindset will be bogged down if you got weeds in the garden because it's pulling healthy nutrients from the earth, from God, that should be going into our garden, our fruits and our vegetables. Instead, it's going to a weed that's dead and sucking the life out of you. What's sucking the life out of you right now? Is it a friend? I have a spiritual son. I'm very proud of him. He's not, I mean, he'll tell you himself, I am not there yet. But you know something? He doesn't stop. If there's one thing he's learned from me, it's called desire. That desire to never quit. There's a sign above me. It says, suck it up, Buttercup. It comes something from the little section up there is the spiritual father of mine, Vivi. He used to always tell me, suck it up, Buttercup. So what? You got hurt. So what? You got raped in prison. So what? What are you going to do about it? Suck it up, Buttercup. 10% of life is what happens to you. 90% of it is what you do with it. That mindset, this spiritual son of mine doesn't have complete yet. He's not there. He's just on the beginning of his life and his journey. But he's got this one part down. I know I need people that know more than me to help mentor me and coach me through life. And I know I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. So just be humble. And when you see that you're making a mistake, correct it quick and try not to make it again. If that was all he ever learned, he's 10 times better than anybody that I see walking around the streets all day long. 10 times better than the guy who's making $105,000. But that's all he's ever made. He's never gone above that. He's broke. He literally lives paycheck to paycheck and he makes $105,000. Oh, I'm broke. Because this young man has that desire. He'll be able to accomplish anything. That mindset, he knows he's got to keep weeding that garden. Now, his garden might have more weeds than yours and mine, and you might have more than me, and I might have more than you. But the question is, are you attending to your garden, or are you focused on the garden next to yours? See, often I find people always talking about the garden next to theirs. Oh, look at that garden. Whoo, doggy, that guy's got a nice garden. Man, you see the size of his watermelons? Look at that fruit. My Lord, that corn, how many cobs is on that stalk of corn? Yeah, we're always looking at someone else's garden, how beautiful it is. Or we're looking down at someone's garden going, oh, man, that guy's garden. Oh, God, he's got no fruit growing. Did you see his watermelon? It was the size of a tennis ball. That's horrible. Thank God I'm not like him. They're so focused on other people's lives, other people's gardens, they don't even realize that they're destroying their own life right before them because they're lying to themselves. Yeah, I'm on track to be like that guy. They're not. All they're on track to do is keep looking at other people's lives saying, oh, that's great. Oh, I want to be like that. Well, wanting to be something and becoming something are two different things. Everybody says, I want to make money, but no one's ever willing to do what it takes to make money. No one's willing to stay up all night long. When I traveled 9 months a year on the road, touring this country, I've been to every state a minimum of 25 times. I've been to every metropolitan city in America. I have driven on every interstate this country has and the highways and byways in between. I have flown over 250,000 miles in airlines alone on a yearly basis. Folks, I've been around. But let me tell you something. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed my time. But most of the men that I toured with and traveled, they loved going to like strip clubs and bars and all that kind of stuff. Well, see, I did that thing once in my life, all the bar fights and getting into it. I don't need to prove anything. I was the Irish beast. That's all I got to say. I did my share. And I didn't need to go to a strip club to get teased by some lady who's going to charge me $500 to make me go home and not be happy because I had a family and a wife. But what did I do then? I spent my time studying. I always have a book in my hand. I'm always reading something. This one right here is the new one. It's called Life Force by my friend Tony Robbins. It's all about modern emerging medicines that are changing the world. And so I'm merging the Eastern medicine with Western and seeing how people can heal themselves in ways that have never been seen before. And the guys that wrote this, by the way, it's not my friend Tony. He's not the expert. The two guys in the book with him, the two doctors who hold PhDs from MIT and medical degrees from Harvard Medical School, those brilliant giants are the ones that came up with this book, that wrote it, and that Tony's helping promote to bring awareness to people like myself and yourself. So I always had a book in my hand. I was always reading a book. And if I was in a place where I couldn't read or my eyes were hurting, I'd put on the old headsets, throw a CD in. There, I know a couple of you are like, CD, what's that? That was before you had all these MP3 players, or I don't even think they have those anymore. I think now it's just on your phone, Audible. But I always was listening and reading something. And then I was always attending functions. I would go to museums and learn and study people. I wanted to go find out more about Van Gogh, and I wanted to learn about why Picasso was Picasso and study their lives. So I would immerse myself, see the paintings, read the books, read the or watch the documentaries, and immerse myself in culture and understand people. And that's how my career just kept soaring. Because when someone said, oh, well, I'm from Tennessee. Oh, what part? And they tell me, I could tell them history of that part. I had something to relate with them because I was always wanting to plant more things in my garden, put more tools in my tool belt. And so by becoming I don't want to say a Renaissance man because I don't feel it's good to call yourself that. But because I really was a man of the world and traveled and well-versed, I was able to learn things from even fools, men who destroyed their lives. Like King Saul. What an idiot. That guy was a complete idiot. He could have had an empire that reigned forever, but his ego got in the way. He was lying to himself. He wasn't weeding his garden. He was looking at King David, the guy that was going to become king. He was looking at David, the David and Goliath story, and saying, oh, his garden, he's trying to overtake mine. Had he minded his own business and stayed in his garden, who knows what would have happened. But I know this, it surely probably would not have been what we all saw and heard happening. So again, I asked the question, are you weeding your garden? And what lies are you telling yourself? I tell myself lies every day. I do. Can you be honest with yourself? Now, the older I get and the more sophisticated I learn tools and techniques, and the more that my mentors and me are in this really good flow together, what do I call a white lie? My back hurts today. I did break my back once when I fell down a flight of stairs after having a stroke, and I broke my hip after having a stroke in a fall. So I start with that, right? That's my first white lie. I'm bringing that up to set up for the white lie. So the ball's teed up. There's the field goal. And all I got to do is just boom. I just don't think I can hit that gym today. You don't understand. I didn't sleep well last night. And I didn't sleep well last night. I was up until almost 3 a.m. tossing and turning. I had a really tough night. So I could tell a white lie. You know, I just need to rest a little. My neck's got something going on with it. They can't figure it out yet. We got to do some MRIs or something. Man, if I put any extra pressure on that, if I throw a backpack on and my 60-pound weighted vest, I probably should wait. Again, telling lies. Or I can do what's made me successful my whole life. Suck it up, Buttercup. All right, guys, I love you. That's Real Talk with Rev for the month of March. I love you guys. Be blessed. And do me a favor. Tend to your garden and watch how God blesses you with so much abundant fruit in your life. God bless. You know the drill. Live positive.